were in our Catholic church, we were in a folk group. It wasn't a rock band, but we did upbeat music a lot. And this was a particular version of O Come, Emmanuel that I liked, that Terry liked, a lot of us liked, because it was more upbeat than the slower, mournful one. So anyway, hope you like it.
Come, come, Emmanuel, Son of God, appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near. Oh come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appears. Come, Emmanuel, Son of God appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near. Oh come, O rod of Jesse, stand from every foe deliver, that trust your mighty power to save, and give them victory o'er the grave. Come, Emmanuel, Son of God, appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near. Oh, come, desire of nations mine, and won the hearts of all mankind. Oh, bid our sad division cease, and be for us the Prince of Peace. Come, Emmanuel, Son of God, appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Come, Emmanuel, Son of God, appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near.
That's nice.
Ever heard that?
Thank you.
Anybody ever heard
I
that?
love it.
Yeah, Steve Angrisano is the artist. Yeah, one of our favorites from the past. Thought it was appropriate for today. So, looking back real quick on our past 3 weeks that we've been talking about the angels coming. First we had Zechariah's visit, and we were talking about getting messages in silence and honoring silence. Then we talked about Mary's visit and her response, and how can we respond bravely and with courage. And then last week we talked about Joseph and traditions, and when should we challenge traditions for the better, because he had to make a tough decision there to break tradition. And this week we're talking about when the angels visited the shepherds. So I guess real quickly, what's one thing besides the angels and the do not be afraid thing? What's the one other thing that all these things have in common? Can anybody think of something? What's an adjective you might describe, or
Unexpected.
unexpected?
Wonder.
There you go. Wonder. Good. Anything else?
Do not be afraid. We hear
Yeah.
that.
Besides the unafraid and the angels, anything else that, the unexpected thing?
Supernatural.
Awe and wonder.
Message.
Hope.
Okay. What about, let's get this, what about the word disruption? Were they disruptive, every one of them? It kind of goes along with this word here.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprising.
My heritage disrupted.
Disruption, surprise. Okay, so I want to kind of, the theme, I guess I want to kind of dig into a little deeper, is this the theme of the unexpected disruption, surprise event, or in this case, it was actually a surprise person. So, and you know, I'm thinking maybe to give us more time on discussion, we won't read the whole reading, but I think everybody here knows the reading. You know, the shepherds get visited, they're told about this baby that's going to be born in the manger, and you should go find him. And these shepherds are all, what is this? They're amazed, they're surprised. Is it a disruption for the shepherds? Probably. I mean, they're out here minding their own business, and all of a sudden, what's up with this, So, I guess one of the questions I kind of wanted to lead with is, and this doesn't have to be just at Christmas, but have any of you ever had like a big disruption, unexpected guest at holiday time? Maybe some unexpected relative dropped in that kind of blew everything up, but you had to just kind of roll with it, or anybody ever have an experience like that around the holidays or another time?
We had blow-ups, but they were expected.
Yours are expected?
You knew what was coming, you just couldn't stop it.
So they were expected disruptions but you still had to find a way to embrace them. Right.
When I was in college, I lived with 3 other guys, and we were all believers, and we made a pact to open our place up to homeless people.
Oh, wow.
So we continually had people in our place, sleeping on our couch, who, it was disruptive. And most of them, they weren't right in the head for some reason. They were either addicted to something, or,
Right.
Our mental health care system back then and now did a very poor job of protecting these folks from the elements and from others and from themselves. So we did that for, I don't know, I think we did that 3 years. It's pretty disruptive.
So talk about how did you prepare for that disruption? You knew it was going to be disruptive. You talked about the people that were coming in. I guess and you made a commitment, but then you had to deal with it. So what were some of the barriers, and how did you get your mind around dealing with it with openness, I guess, and not putting up the screens, because sometimes when we deal with people who are different, very strange from what we're used to, we have a tendency to go into fight or flight, or fear, or we're not sure how to deal with this. How did you deal with that? Talk about that a little bit.
All that was present. All of it was present. We were all, four of us, different personality types. I will say this, that was easy to do because we were all poor. So, stuff was gonna get lifted from the apartment, and it was.
Right.
None of it was great stuff, and we had stuff stolen from us. And there were physical conflicts that happened, and because we were all wired differently, and I've said to you all enough, I was the heavy. I was the guy who would go, nah, we ain't doing that, or if we are, you're going to lose, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Not everyone was wired that way. That actually helped for balance, I think it was very balanced. We had people who were great peacemakers, and we had people who were very good servants, much better servant than me, to give up stuff. But once we made the commitment at the beginning, we didn't know really what we were committing to, right? It was one of these things of, hey, if we're gonna try and live into our faith, let's see what happens with this. And I will say it was a net positive. I would never do it with a wife and kids, because it was dangerous. It truly was. It was dangerous, probably, not the wisest thing in the world, but.
Did you tell your mother you were
young. Yeah. But importantly, it was four young guys who,
Right.
we weren't inviting four other people to stay with us, it was one. So, and it was always a guy, and it was always somebody off the street. And it was generally for, what we ended up finding out was, we were a way station about 3 days. And we were food, and we were a shower, and which was, I will tell you, the number one thing was the shower.
Yeah.
Oh, they loved that they got to get clean, and got to wash their clothes. That was the big stuff.
Cool stuff.
And just the last part was the engagement of just talking through
Right.
who they were, and and us figuring out, this is a big part to me. It's kind of in that article too, this idea of this person's a soul, they're equal to me.
Right.
I'm blessed with resources and they are not. And once all of them figured out we weren't trying to convert them, con them, change them, that part was pretty transformative.
Very, very cool story.
I have,
Yeah.
and saying that just made me think yours seems much more dangerous and much better. That I had a family member, foster parents, some of y'all may have been foster parents, but it was cousins of mine that were foster parents, and they, the hardest times for years they were foster parents, but Christmas Eve, when you have Christmas Eve drop-offs that all of a sudden, they can't be with their parent, these kids are alone, and they would have give an hour notice. You're getting these 3 children, these are their sizes, yes or no, they haven't been fed McDonald's, dinner, or yes or no, they don't have shoes and clothes, and what needs to be gathered, and especially on Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
They could be there for them, but these are children who have just lost their mother or their father or someone whoever's taking care of them, and, you have to move fast to get everything done for.
You're gonna say something?
Oh, no.
Okay. Anybody ever been the disruptive guest.
I thought you were a disruptor. I live that. Every day I'm a disruptor. Everybody's saying you're disrupting me.
Yes,
Not
I'm-
welcome as a guest.
Yeah,
Yeah, it didn't have to happen on Christmas.
right.
That's it. It's 365.
I guess when I thought about this, I thought about all the times I've traveled overseas by myself when I was working. And I would go out and purposely, all by myself, you know, half the people don't speak my language, and I'm just trying to navigate the world I'm in through strangers all around me. And I have to force myself to engage with people, hope they speak some English, get some kind of dialogue going. I mean, it was risky, right? I mean, it's risky.
That's courage.
And but all, you know, in all my experiences, people generally I ran into welcomed me and were open and accepting. And we had one Christmas where Terry may have told this story to some of you. It was our first Christmas.
Or Thanksgiving.
It was Thanksgiving. And all of a sudden, your brother came over.
My brother came over, he
Girl.
said, I have 2 Chinese professors that have no place to go, can they come? Mike has a friend from, where was he from? El
He-
Salvador.
he
He has
just-
no place
yeah.
to go, can he come for
He
Thanksgiving?
just started work. He was from El Salvador. He was just starting to go through a divorce. He had no place. He could speak English and everything, but yeah, he was kind of a foreigner, you know, with no place to go, and you know, so we had all these people for a surprise Thanksgiving gathering, and then we had other disruptions, you know, sinks backing up, and the Chinese guys didn't speak any English. We kind of had to go. They could write English and read English, so we kind of had to go through little notes and things and talk to them about, you know, their situation and stuff. So that was.
And I will remind you that I was 8.5 months pregnant.
Yeah. Trista was
Yeah,
born
the
the
best
weekend.
part.
Yeah, you buried the lead.
I got baby the next week.
So Mike, should we talk? I mean, you want to get something off your chest here today? I apologize in front of everybody.
No, it was a very, very interesting talking to these Chinese professors, because we just moved into this house in August. They were like, the English they knew, they looking around the house, they said, how many people live here? And our house is not huge, only 2,200 square feet. And we just said us, and they said in China, they would have 4 families living in that house. And they thought we were extremely wealthy, and we were broke.
Yeah, that reminds me, I once drove a Chinese college student from TCU to San Antonio at Christmas. Our church had an international student ministry, and I was going to South Texas anyway, and so 5 hours in the car, you know, with this Chinese student. At the time, I had not had a lot of, you know, relationships with international students, and I was a seminary student, you know, gung-ho about my faith. You know, he was not a Christian, you know, but we had the most wonderful conversation about the values, at the level of values that were important to him and his family, and yeah, it was really, I think it was really eye-opening for me, as well as it was a really great experience. Trying to connect with somebody at the level of values, right? Where faith wasn't a bridge, but values were. Yeah.
And so one thing I see in common in all these stories is we're having a dialogue one-on-one to connect with a human being. We're not doing it through a cell phone text or, you know, we're all these other distractions we have in our world today, you know, with cell phones and deliveries to our house. Sometimes we don't even go to the grocery store to get groceries. We have it delivered. I wonder how much we miss out on possible other human disruptions because maybe not us in this room, maybe we're better at staying out of our cell phone shells, than, other folks, but, you know, I get trapped in there sometimes. I get trapped in my social media shell or my, cell phone conversations instead of, making a personal connection. One thing that helps me that I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do is, you know, I work at Samaritan Inn every week, interviewing homeless folks and connecting with them about their stories, doing mock job interviews with them, and I've heard a lot of stories. I can't talk about them, but I've just heard a lot of stories. It just opens your mind up to, you know, what it's like to be homeless, and, you know.
Mike,
Yeah.
in keeping with the Chinese theme,
Yeah.
one of my college roommates was Chao Chi Chun. He's from Hong Kong. And I invited him to come along with our family down to my grandparents' house for Thanksgiving in Hubbard, Texas. And I wondered how, they probably never met a Chinese person. I wondered how that was gonna go. It went fine.
Oh, cool.
And on the way down, his American name that he chose was Jackson. So Jackson said, he's looking at all the land. He just couldn't believe that all this land was and from Hong Kong.
Right.
Not that much.
No, it's pretty packed.
And so he was wondering, how come all this land's not being used? But it was a good time.
Different context,
For roommates.
yeah.
Joanna came over from Hong Kong to attend OBU, Oklahoma Baptist University, in 1972. Eunice Short, who was the International Students Liaison, picked her up in Oklahoma City and drove her to Shawnee. And Joanna said, I was thinking, what is all this red dirt here? Where are the buildings, where are the skyscrapers? You know? Yeah, it was a culture shock.
Tornado.
Okay, what about other examples of, I'm gonna turn this into, the story today is kind of a different class of disruption, maybe a holy disruption, we can call it. And maybe some of these examples that we've talked about can be considered holy disruption because the person that we encountered transformed us somehow because of, you know, the interaction that we had. What other kinds of holy disruptions can you think of that maybe happened in your community? Maybe here at Wilshire or in another church you attended? I know there's examples here at Wilshire. Anybody think of any?
Are you mean personal, or are you talking about as an organization?
It could be like an eventful, not a one-on-one thing, but just a,
Like an, okay.
you know, I mean, I thought of, you know, all of the stuff that Wilshire went through with dealing with the LBGT questions and that whole thing was sort of a holy disruption for the community and the church, and took a lot of courage and conversations and stuff to, you know, get through all that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to look where the church, whether it's this church as an individual or the church as a concept, as Christian, stands opposed to society's majority, you know, and so where they a lot of times we match, right? The society and the church are really like lined up. But when it starts to go, the church is like really different than where the society is generally going, that's the place I like to look at and say, I wonder why that is, and where the church's position evolved from, and is that moral or valuable? You know, is it ethical where the church is standing? And if it is, then society must be adjusted.
Well, and I think too, Jim, though, I think that it's not only the church versus society, it's church versus church.
Yeah.
You know, we stood different from other people in the faith community, so.
And within the Christian church, right?
Right,
That's a
right,
good
yeah,
point, so,
yeah.
so you even just one and then all, right?
Yeah.
Good point, that's really
Like
good.
the one downtown, you know?
Yeah.
That's one, and they would be looking the other direction, they'd be like,
Sure.
inside there, I would bet there's folks, how many, they got thousands of people there, I'd be like, there's gotta be one or two of them going like, you know, where do we stand? How are our positions relative to society? And I think that causes us to question, I think that's where kind of this public intellectual or, these people come in and speak into that space. George was one of them, right? George spoke into that disconnect or where they didn't match. And I think, so when I hear about what you just said about LGBTQ, activity, and we stand different in some
Yeah.
senses.
Yeah.
Than the majority in Dallas, we're in Dallas, Texas, you know, it's conservative. So that's amazing. I mean, it's a place to look and see, is it ethical, is it the right thing? Yeah.
And speaking of George, I think Faith Commons is a disruptor. It says, you know, we respect others who
Well, yeah.
don't believe like we do, but we find common ground with each other. And others say, no, we can't be together.
We still have a long way to go, it's
Right.
just that, there's a lot of issues, it's just, like you said, you brought up the one. So,
It was interesting, Saturday at Gateway of Grace, I was talking to a Episcopalian woman, and she said, she knew George and loved George and history and stuff, and she says, does your church pray for Palestine? She said, and I said, yes, we do, and she said, our church won't do it. She said, I don't know what's going on, if it's the bishop level or whatever, but I can't get our leadership to pray for the Palestinians. Of course, the room is full of, you know, people of Middle Eastern origin from every side of the table, right?
Yeah.
But that's very disruptive, and it's, you know, it's something that some people, churches won't even touch, you know, because.
Not to even pray.
Not even to pray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah.
It's not, that's not waiting into the politics of it,
Yeah.
just basic human care.
Well, I don't want to, I disagree with a lot of the policies and beliefs propounded by certain churches, but I don't want to discount their faith.
Oh,
The
yeah.
individuals in a
Right.
church, they do a lot of good. They and especially on an individual or small group basis. And most churches I ever belonged to, I really didn't. I mean, the stuff at the top wasn't something that was my concern.
Right.
When you say stuff at the top, you mean
Yeah,
what
I
the
mean,
leadership was doing?
The leadership and what they're saying out in the community.
Yeah.
And even if and there's stuff I didn't agree with in almost every church I belong to,
Yeah.
except for maybe this one. But I think if people are working on their faith, if they're doing what is in that article, I think that they're going to be in some way, doing Jesus' work.
Yeah.
So I don't wanna paint with an overbroad brush.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and I think they can do, you know, we all can, and we can be negative, you know. And as an organization, we do things like the gun violence, display we had out here. And I think about Scott, and the prisoner entrepreneurial program, going to the prison to try and help these people and these prisoners when they get out. So that he can change the
Yeah.
path they are on.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I went to the prison once, well, I've been like 3 times, but the first time I went was the first time I was ever in a prison. And, yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I had fear going through my head, you know, I mean, there's all these security things you gotta go through. You go through all this training that talks to you about how, you know, any given situation, how to deal with if something happens and some guy gets a knife or something and you're taken hostage. I mean, so you're getting all this fear planted in you before you even go to the prison, you know? And so I had all that stuff going through my head, and then when I started talking with these guys one-on-one, it just kind of melted away, and I was able to, you know, coach them and give them pointers on, you know, what they could do next with their lives and their plans, and so, yeah.
Cause they have souls.
Exactly. So you know that article, and I sent it to other people too, but the thing that was powerful to me about the article, not just the content, but the guy who's writing that, he disagrees with us a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, he's the conservative voice.
No, I didn't see this, what
Oh, it's a David Brooks article.
article, okay, I
Yeah.
did see that one, I
Yeah,
just didn't see your.
so, and you know, he's this conservative voice in media that generally is juxtaposed, and he's considered a rational conservative
Yeah.
voice in media. And he's juxtaposed by someone who would be more progressive, and you know, they're on PBS, or he's on other things too, and that's kind of how his column is built out, but I'm saying that to just say, he did such a nice job in the article of describing what I always, you know, my little shorthand piece for this is God is always talking to everybody all the time, and that's his article, right? He's talking to you on the subway, he's talking to you in a cathedral, and when he did this nice piece about religion, he was like, look, religion is just people trying to organize themselves so they can have that transcendent moment more. I thought that was beautiful, because I truly think that piece, the transcendent piece, it is disruption. It's disrupting us out of living this false reality, which is all about self, and you know, it's just self-consuming, and our eyes being opened to the world God sees, which is a subway full of souls, as opposed to a subway full of people who need to bathe. You know, those are two very different experiences.
One of the things I thought of, just going through this, was being versus having. You know, having is where all the things like fear and lack of, or I might not have enough of, or you know, stranger danger. You know, that's where all that is born out of. Whereas just being, I'm more like you said, you know, being with the present moment, the person, the soul, whatever can happen. So I'd like to kind of read a summary paragraph from here that I thought summed up this lesson pretty well, and then we'll do a closing prayer. So love shows up as a young man who needs support and some grocery money. It comes to town undocumented. It appears as an unhoused neighbor in worship, a refugee family new to the neighborhood, or a baby born to a family that's just passing through. The question is always, ever only this: will we be ready? Will we welcome love however it comes to us, unafraid? So I'm gonna read a closing prayer now. God with us, Emmanuel, the room is ready, the places are set. Come to us, abide with us. Take your place in our hearts and in our homes. May we always be ready and waiting when angels come calling us. And may we never fail to welcome strangers with love and welcome we have always known in you. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for participating and sharing your stories. Appreciate it.
I came in late.
Oh, that's right, you got to work for you.
Yeah. Hey, Raquel, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.